So the town of Barnstable and DPW has created a brochure for folks to really have them understand how snow and ice gets cleared from our streets. Can you give us a little information on categories of storms?
Sure. So that came because we did, if for those of you that remember, back in 2015 we had Juno. And that was a very large storm with a lot of impact on us. And we would have people calling DPW saying, well, we don't understand. You know, you always remove snow. What's the problem this time? Well, it's a different storm than the other storms. We realized that we failed in terms of communicating expectations, that different storms are going to have different outcomes based on how the department's configured. So what we did is we looked at that and we looked at what our abilities are. And those three categories, A, B, and C, are based on DPW's abilities. And we looked at where we can do what we can do and where we can't, and said, okay, we're going to break into three categories: Category A, Category B, Category C. And roughly, if you have to try to think about it from an inch perspective, Category A is up to about 18 inches of snow, less than an inch an hour, generally a storm that lasts less than 24 hours. Our traditional, typical storm, and we traditionally get like an 8 or 9 incher, right in the sweet spot of Category A. Category B is delineated from A in the fact that when we get to Category B, the small trucks, and you'll see some of them around here that do our secondary roads, and in town there's two sort of forms of roads that we'll talk about here, main roads and secondary roads. The small trucks that do our secondary roads start to get stuck pretty routinely in Category B. We experienced that in Juneau, where at one point in time, basically our entire small truck fleet was stuck. And we spent more time rescuing them than we did moving snow. We eventually had to stop doing that. And that's what significantly happens from A to B, is in Category B, we start pulling back out of the secondaries. We've pulled out of the parking lots at that point in time. We're throwing all the heavy gear we can on the main roads, trying to keep main roads open. If the storm gets above a 24-inch storm and more than an inch an hour for any extended period of time, because the accumulation comes pretty hard at that point, we're now starting to get into a Category C. When we get into a Category C, the smaller dump trucks you see in terms of the 6-wheel dump trucks, they start to get stuck all the time. In fact, during June, I'd look out the window and there was one stuck right in front of us at our gas pumps. They just become ineffective. And at that point in time, really, and then all we had rolling was 5 loaders and a 10-wheeler. Now we've beefed up the fleet. We have the Oshkoshes. We have additional 10-wheelers in the fleet. We should be better, but really what we're going to be focusing on is the hospital routes and life safety. What does the police department need from us? What does the fire department need from us? And the hospital routes particularly. Anything left in terms of capacity will go on to main roads and the principal main roads, but generally speaking, if we're in a Category C, people's expectations need to be, we are going to be snowed in. It'll be a while before we get into roads. When we do, they'll be hard pack. It's going to feel very much like what we experienced in 2015, hopefully better, but kind of similar outcomes.
Right. And Joe, there's a lot of things that residents can do to actually help you guys out on the roads. What are some of the suggestions you have for folks?
Well, you know, in snow and ice preparation, you know, we ask the folks to stake their properties so we can see their, you know, the turf. We can see their driveway. We can see the road line, so we're not peeling up their grass. Also, is just, you know, hear the warnings. You know, be safe. You know, stay off the roads when asked to. You know, try to let us do our job and not hinder and get in our way.
Right. Why do you not want them on the roads? If you say they can't park on Main Street, why is that?
Well, like Rob was alluding to, is if we're in those kind of category storms, the public tends to get stuck. And then we're spending time trying to rescue and help emergency response get them off the road, and that takes us away from our job.
Right. So the most important thing that we really want folks to understand is this is all done for emergency purposes. So if they do have a problem, there's a route to and from them.
Right. And we during June, we had to plow into people to get people out so the ambulances could get in. But to Joe's point on staying off the road, so what we find happens is, you know, for instance, the airport rotary, it's just chock-a-block full of cars. They can't go anywhere, and we can't plow it even around them. It's not even like we can ignore them and sort of work around them. They're now in the way, or South Street at one point in time was full of it, and that's a hospital route. So ambulances were having a difficult time getting down into there because the road was full of cars that had gone out to see what had happened and had gotten stuck. It's not a good idea whether it be a hurricane or a significant snowstorm, to go wandering around to see what's going on until the event's done and everything's cleaned up and you've been told that it's safe to move around.
Right. And let's talk just a little bit briefly about the salt and sanding protocols here. These, it seems like you pre-treat roads now, so you've got a jump on this if you've got some ice coming.
So here's the key to this game. It's much easier to peel up snow. If you think of a road like sort of if my hand's the road, if the snow is adhered to the road, it's going to be very difficult to get it up off the road. If you can leave a little layer of water between the snow and the road, and we call that the brine layer, and if it's salty, it doesn't freeze because salt water freezes at lower temperatures than otherwise. And if we have some other mixtures in there, it freezes at a much lower temperature. If you can leave that little layer of water, then the trucks, as they come to plow it up, can just peel all that up very easily, and it avoids hard pack. Once you've lost your brine layer, you're going to start packing it down, hard pack, and you start to try to melt it from the top, and that never works well. So the whole philosophy of the salting program is establish the brine layer, plow a few passes, reestablish the brine layer, but maintain that as long as we can throughout the storm so that we can get down to pavement best we can. So that's the philosophy of that. And then on black ice calls, that's just a traditional, it's icy out there, we need to get out there and get some material down to try to deal with it.
So now we're ready to go. Our salt barn's full, and and we got our machines, we got the equipment to take care of it.
Really, just need a few flakes.
That's it.
Excellent.
Or not. We're okay not.
We're okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It can stay 70 all winter. That'd be good.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Any last words for residents?
No, I want to go back to the staking thing real quick. It's really difficult to understand how difficult it is to see at night. And obviously, I come from the engineering side. So when I first came here, I went out for a couple nights with some of the plow drivers. When it's 2 in the morning and it's dark and the wind's blowing snow everywhere, where the edge of the road is not intuitive, which you'd think, because during the middle of the day, it's like, well, it's right there. Why do you not see that? That's why that staking is so valuable. When you have those stakes out there and that driver can see, okay, that's where the edge is, that helps them tremendously and allows them to move quickly through the route. Otherwise, they're having to sort of literally feel their way along. And mistakes happen. So please, 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 if you have an opportunity, go ahead and do that. That really helps us a bit.
And this is the time, the ground's not frozen.